theme song guy.
Oh, yeah! He's the sovereign of the nation. He's the hippest cat in creation. He's the Alpha, the Omega, A to Z. And this perfect world will spin around his every little whim. Cause his perfect world begins and ends with
Me!
What's his name? Cusco! That's his name! He's the king of...
Let's go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Mouse Madness. It's been a while since the tournament ended, but we're here with a very special episode. So quick introductions out of the way. I'm your host, IrishHuskie, a.k.a. Nicholas. I'm joined by my usual posse, as well as a very special guest. So we'll start with the posse first, and then the guest.
Hello, I am Wesley, Dr. W. I had suffered from Mouse Madness withdrawal and podcast withdrawal, so I kind of was very serendipitous to find this guy, and I'm really glad to be back.
Hello, I am Carrick, Raccoon Bro, and Namnit, and I, as always, there you go.
Hello, I'm Yoda Jats 10, aka Jats and Lennox. I am a writer and reviewer of animation, and I'm also a voice impressionist. I do like the Tweety Bird from Looney Tunes, and also Yosemite Sam!
Nice.
Oh, but by the way, happy birthday to Death Battle. It's their 10-year anniversary today.
Yay.
Oh, nice.
Only 10 years? Feels like just yesterday.
All right, and here we have a special guest. Please introduce yourself and what you're all about.
Hello, I am Micah Hirsh, and I am an animator on YouTube through Fireblast Studios, but I think the reason I'm on here is I am also the host of The Emperor's New Podcast, a podcast all about The Emperor's New Groove franchise, everything from the movies, the game, to the TV show, to even obscure appearances in the parks.
Yeah, and this technically counts as Emperor's New Groove related media, so you can add this to your repertoire.
Yeah,
That would be insanely meta.
yeah, we here at Mouse Madness are more than familiar with The Emperor's New Groove. For those who somehow forgot in the month since we uploaded the finale, The Emperor's New Groove was the grand champion of the 58 film tournament. An outcome that really shocked me at the time, but I think over time, the more I've really thought about it and the more I've thought about its legacy and its influence, it's not that surprising to me anymore.
It was just underseeded.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was, I think, one of like 4 movies in the tournament that was a lower seed to move on to the second round.
Yeah.
But it was the only one to get past round 2, even though it had like the lowest chance of getting there. So
I still feel like if we had held a poll like this on a more like national level as opposed to exclusively on the internet, it might have not stood as much of a chance. Because let's face it, internet culture worships this movie.
oh, tell me about it.
So that's one of the reasons I think it won.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I voted for Emperor's New Groove every time, so I don't judge those people. I worship this movie too.
And you became the world's leading expert on Emperor's New Groove. Out of curiosity.
As happy I am as the Emperor's New Groove one, I am at least glad that the Lion King still put up a fighting chance.
Yeah, The Lion King is a wonderful movie.
Nothing to sneeze at.
True.
So quick recap for Micah, because he's a little behind.
All right, so is this just a recap of the Emperor's New Groove's journey?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Because I feel like we'd be here forever if we did literally everything.
Yeah, I guess. So, so the way I set up the tournament was I gave each movie a score based on the average of their IMDb and Metacritic score, and I used those scores to rank them from 1 to 58. And I used those rankings to seed them in a March Madness style bracket. And The Emperor's New Groove started out in 33rd place, so it became a 9 seed in Class A. Now, in the first round, it went up against the 8 seed, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, a semi-forgotten 1940s post-World War II package film that let's face it, never stood a chance. Emperor's New Groove beat it out 15 votes to 0. The second round... Go ahead.
I'm a little sad that I didn't get a chance to talk about that film because I do have fond memories of it as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
But
you came...
maybe...
That's right. You came in late to that podcast, didn't you?
Yeah. You guys were talking about Moana, I think.
Oh,
but
yeah.
and so maybe some other time we could talk about like obscure Disney movies.
Perhaps. All right, so the first round was kind of a freebie, but the second round, it went up against the 1 seed from Class A, the overall 1 seed, Beauty and the Beast. Now, I thought Beauty and the Beast was going to curb stomp this movie, or at the very best possible case scenario, it would be a very close matchup with Emperor's New Groove maybe winning.
This is where I came in.
Yes.
I was Tom I was first saying Beauty and the Beast was going to win. I was first saying Beauty and the Beast was going to win, but like the Emperor's New Groove like legit surprised me here.
Yeah,
this is the turning point where we realized that things were a bit we weren't in Kansas anymore, so to speak.
This essentially set the tone for the rest of the tournament because the Emperor's New Groove won this matchup 20-10 against the only movie in this entire tournament to get a Best Picture nomination and is still widely regarded as an all-time classic. So to see it win by that large of a margin, yeah, that was the point we knew that we were in for something special with this one.
Emperor's New Groove winning is less of a surprise, but I'm more surprised at the margin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it makes you question if Beauty and the Beast can't beat this film, what can?
And it turns out nothing.
That's what I was putting up against, I was talking about Moana and stuff and Mulan. I'm just like, well, if it beat Beauty and the Beast, the others don't stand a chance.
Then on to the Sweet 16.
I mean, also, later.
We'll get to that.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, the Sweet 16 round, Emperor's New Groove went up against the 4 seed, which was Moana. Moana lost by less of a point margin, but more of a ratio margin. 13 votes to 5.
Sorry.
So still 2.5 times more votes than its opponent, which at this point was just par for the course for the movie.
I think Moana is my second favorite Disney movie, and for a large part, it's the exact opposite reason why The Emperor's New Groove is my first favorite movie.
That's fascinating. Yeah, Moana's in my top 10. Definitely.
Moana, I definitely. It was the first film I talked about on this podcast,
It's such
and
a Disney movie.
and I'm glad I did
In the
because
best way.
yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's definitely at least in my top 15 because
I wasn't as much a fan as you guys, but after rewatching it for this tournament and hearing you guys' thoughts, I kind of warmed up to it.
Moana, in my opinion, as I said numerous times back in Mouse Madness, John Muster and Ron Clements are my favorite directors at Disney. Moana is my least favorite work from them, even though I still think it's a good movie. I just don't think it's near as good as something like Little Mermaid or Aladdin or so forth.
And that's fair. Yeah.
And you also said that you don't think Shiny would be as big as it is if it weren't for Skate Frillis, right?
I guess.
Yeah.
Somebody said that.
I thought Toa was my favorite part. He was just hilarious.
I think somebody said that Tamatoa wouldn't be as big as he is without Skate Frillis. I forgot who.
I think he should have been in the movie more.
Is it
more of Tamatoa.
Is it Stay Frillis or Shea Frillis? I'm not sure.
I don't know. I always thought it was Chef Frillis, but I don't know.
Man, I don't know.
Incidentally, also did a video about The Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why it's a comedic classic.
All right. On to the Elite 8 round. The Emperor's New Groove went up against the 7 seed Mulan. And this was the moment where it almost fell apart.
This was the biggest challenge.
Yeah. I thought Beauty and the Beast was going to put up a really close fight with Emperor's New Groove. It turns out Mulan was the one to put up the big fight, and it literally came as close as you could possibly get. By the time voting was over, it was at a 10-10 tie.
It's that song. Everybody loves that song.
That one song. The one that everybody.
Well, I like the other ones, but most people talk about,
Yeah.
I'll make a man out of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's the showstopper.
Exactly.
They got Donny Osmond.
I'll tell you, it's the reason that movie is a musical. Tony Bancroft, the
Director?
one of the directors of the movie, who also was the supervising animator of Kronk, was on my podcast, and he told me that they didn't want Mulan to be a musical, and the thing that convinced them was Make a Man Out of You.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Good job, Donny Osmond. You did something good for once.
Yes, I have him on my podcast, and soon Bob Bergen, the voice of Bucky the Squirrel, will be on my podcast.
Oh, that is sick. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I just asked.
Dude,
just like I did for you.
Dude, Bob Bergen, I love that man. That's sick.
And Porky Pig.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's one of the few voice actors to have surpassed one of Mel Blanc's roles, in my opinion.
What other ones, dude? Like, I heard Joe Lasky as Marvin the Martian was also one of them.
I don't know. Viewers, what do you think?
Like
I was just wondering.
Like
I'll
what voice
leave
actor?
that.
Like what voice actors surpassed a Mel Blanc role?
Well, I just say Bob Bergen because he's been voicing Porky for such a long time. Like, because with other characters, it kind of changes out, but nobody really like in the app game for like Looney Tunes the Mayhem game on the app. Like Eric Bauza voices everyone in that game except for Porky Pig. Like that's how ingrained Bob Bergen is with that role.
Wow.
Yeah, like I heard that Bob Bergen also got voice acting tips from Mel Blanc himself over the phone. Actually,
Yes, I believe he did.
there's a sound clip of I think on Bob Bergen's site actually.
Wow.
You know, when you think about it, that's probably the best way to get voice acting tips over the phone.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The father of it himself.
Yeah, but anyway, Emperor's New Groove was tied with Mulan. Then what happened?
One more comment I just want to make. I will say the one thing about these live action remakes, the one good thing they do is that they have given us a better appreciation of the class. I think that's probably why Mulan put up such a fight because of the remake and how
don't remake
and
Emperor's New Groove.
No,
Sorry.
don't. I'm not sure how that would work even, because it's one of the
The
most.
only way I could see it working is if they got like Phil Lord and Chris Miller to do it, and it was a super meta thing.
or
I
like
can see that probably.
well, or we just like go back to the era in the 90s when live action films like tried really hard to be cartoons in live action.
Like the
really
Mask,
difficult to
like
pull
the
that
Mask kind
off.
of thing.
like the 101 Dalmatians movie or like Home Alone 2.
The only movie I think I know of, and I haven't watched it in a long time, so I don't know how well it holds
Or
up.
the Inspector Gadget movie. That was
Yeah.
very cartoony.
Does the cartoon and live action thing fairly well that I can remember is Brendan Fraser's George of the Jungle.
oh yeah,
I love that movie. I
childhood
That's
favorite.
the
I
only
love
one I
it.
know of that could really pull it off.
think it still holds up.
Yeah, like
I haven't watched it in ages, so
Remember, nobody dies in this film. They just get really big boo-boos.
one of my favorite parts of that movie is when the bad guys, like the henchmen, start arguing with the narrator too. Why don't you say something constructive or change? Like, what we should do now?
Wait, was it those movies that had "This is where we throw our heads back and laugh"?
Yes,
I believe that's where that came from.
it is exactly where that meme comes from.
God, I love that
So
reaction.
But anyway, how did you break the tie?
All right, so the way that I broke the tie was I consulted a friend of mine in real life who actually works for Disney's Travelmation company as a travel agent. And she said it was a very tough choice, but she had to go with Emperor's New Groove just because it was funnier. I can respect that.
Yeah.
She also consulted on The Little Mermaid versus Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah, she went for Little
That
Mermaid on
film-
that.
That was
That's not surprising. I like them both, but The Little Mermaid's definitely more iconic.
Yeah. That
Then again, it's more iconic than The Emperor's New Groove also, and so is Beauty and the Beast. So,
So yeah, when it came to her, I was
at least it was.
afraid that Mulan was. I was afraid that Mulan was going to win because she seems like the kind of person who probably prefers the musicals.
Yeah,
but
I was hoping she'd pick Mulan because Mulan is like top 3 for me. Number
But-
2 to be exact, behind Zootopia.
But now that we're here, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. All right. So that was the matchup that sent Emperor's New Groove to the Final Four. And its first matchup was against Disney's magnum opus, Fantasia. Emperor's New Groove wiped the floor with it, 18 votes to 7.
I'm sure there are a lot. I love Fantasia as one of my favorites, especially of the classic era. But I'm sure there are a lot of people that it bores the hell out of. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, you're fine. Like
Okay.
PG-13 stuff is fine.
All right.
yeah.
But with Fantasia, that one got so far, and I'm not sure if it's because people genuinely love it or if it's just because it's a legacy film. Because I rewatched it for this podcast since it had been a really long time, and I hadn't actually seen it all the way through because I tried watching it as a movie, which was my big mistake. So I decided to watch it in increments, like as an experience, and I had a much better time with it when I did that. And even though I did,
And
I was
it's
like,
the longest.
yes,
Yeah.
I think it's the longest animated movie, like
And-
Western animated movie.
The sequel isn't the shortest, but it's much shorter than the first one.
And it reuses one of the shorts from the first
Yeah.
one.
right.
The shortest was either Saludos Amigos or the Three Caballeros, I believe.
Yeah.
I think
It was
I think
Saludos
I
Amigos.
think it was. I thought it was Dumbo.
Saludos Amigos.
it's not a package
The
film.
other one is
Saludos
40.
Amigos was only 40 minutes,
Yeah.
It's barely. I don't even see how that qualifies as a feature.
and the Three Caballeros was a little over an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
people thought-
long.
And people thought Winnie the Pooh was short. Jeez.
Yeah. Oh, I recently did a stats video where I proved that that Winnie the Pooh movie technically did the worst out of all of these movies in the tournament.
Oh
Yeah.
no, really?
Yeah.
Which one?
Fox in
The one from
House,
2011.
Part Two,
Oh, man.
Dumbo was
That
like-
did work. It did worse than Chicken Little.
Yeah.
I
Who won
mean,
the ring.
Chicken Little went up against the third place movie.
yeah,
Line
like
up
my
against
rationale is that Winnie the Pooh lost to Fox and the Hound in the first round. Fox and the Hound lost in round 2 to Dumbo. Dumbo lost in round 3 to Cinderella. Cinderella lost in round 4 to Fantasia. And in the final 4, Fantasia lost to the Emperor's New Groove. And then lost to Aladdin.
That bronze match.
Yeah, so basically every step of the way is a loss. And that's why I said it technically did the worst. Or its loss looks the worst compared to others.
That makes me really sad because I like that movie.
Well,
So do I.
it was the last traditionally animated, fully traditionally animated Walt Disney feature, and it was definitely because the movie was bad, not because they released it the same day as the last installment of one of the biggest franchises in history.
Yeah, one of the biggest franchises written by a maniac.
I seem to remember Princess and the Frog suffering a similar fate.
Yes, it
Oh
was
yeah.
a movie that was against a movie that Disney now owns, and before they owned it, was in the parks.
Alvin and the Chipmunks 2, actually, also. Can you imagine being beaten out by Alvin and the Chipmunks 2?
Which also is owned by that specific movie, not the Alvin and Chipmunks characters. Is also owned by Disney now.
Yeah.
Good
Man.
lord.
Goodness gracious, they own so much.
The sad thing too about Winnie the Pooh is this is like one of the first Disney films in a while where Bernie Mattinson, like the longest running Disney employee, got more involved again. Like this guy who started working back since Lady and the Tramp. Like search of Bernie
Disney
Mattinson.
really
Oh, wow.
Disney
They
really is
really
one step
wanted
away
it
from
to-
becoming Omnicore.
Oh,
They
but-
really wanted
By
that
and large.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah, from Pixar.
They
Well,
really wanted that Winnie the Pooh movie to be the blend of what modern, well, not I feel like at a point in the '90s, animation had become timeless, and it didn't really progress much from there a whole lot in terms of quality. It stayed in its own. They wanted a hybrid of that and the older, sketchier look.
Yeah,
Right.
I
I see. Like
'Cause I feel
like
it
animation,
felt from the
like
90s,
even Toy Story holds up,
all
like the
movies
first CG
kinda-
film.
The
Yeah.
stylization is different, but like the film or eventually they stopped using film, but the quality of the footage has remained the same. And CGI ages, I feel, a lot quicker than traditional animation does.
I think the first Toy Story though does still hold up from a writing standpoint.
Right.
Like it.
Oh no,
And it
it's
helped.
a great
And it helped
movie.
that they focused all the main characters specifically on toys, so they're supposed to look plasticky.
Right.
Yeah.
But whenever you see like a dog or
They're
something,
terrifying.
it's terrifying when they like have a dog on screen.
Yes,
To
Scott.
To be fair, the dog is like one of the villains. So
Yeah. Now the most
Yeah, just like-
the most terrifying imagery is Sid's malformed mouth through the magnifying glass.
Just like take a,
Where are you,
Your
leader
rebel
now?
just take a screenshot comparing the dog from Toy Story to the cat from Toy Story 4.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like
I know that
Dragon.
Toy Story 4 gets a lot of flack. I liked Toy Story 4.
It was a fine movie.
It's the worst in the franchise, but I still think it's good.
Yeah.
It's different, which I like.
I've said in the past, it's easily the worst of the franchise, but it's still better than like 70% of all other movies.
Yeah, for
That-
real.
That's quality for you.
Like,
But then
I'd
we
say
have the
Toy
grand
Story 4 is
final.
like third best personally.
by Toy Story 3, they had wrapped up that trilogy, so they had to do something like just so different. Even though it does have some of the tropes of the other three, there's lots of. It feels like a different movie.
Yeah, it was a good decision to make it more of a comedic film as
Yeah,
opposed to
that's
like
right.
trying to up the stakes of the last one.
All of the Toy Story movies have great comedy, but I feel like Toy Story 4 is the most leans in the most towards the comedy. And if you haven't been able to tell, I'm a big fan of comedy. So
Yeah,
Like
of course.
at some points, it even feels like Wreck-It Ralph levels of craziness, like with the humor.
yeah, like there's,
Yeah, I will admit, as much as
well, we're talking about another movie, but
as
No.
much as I think Toy Story 4 was like, as much as I enjoyed Toy Story 4 a little bit more, 3 I felt had the better ending.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
3 was the ending of the original trilogy. And it's Bo Peep, a Toy Story story.
Uh-huh.
Yep. But then we have the grand final of Mouse Madness, the reason we're all here today.
Yes.
Yep.
Emperor's New Groove versus The Lion King. Now, I wanted to make sure this got as much exposure as possible. First thing I did was say on Twitter, let's see if we can get this to 50 votes. It met that quota within an hour.
Yeah.
Twitter,
man.
Twitter's awesome.
I think it surpassed 100 votes just through Twitter.
Pretty close. And I'd also like to, once again, thank Raccoon Bro for advertising this on his Out of Context Game Grumps channel.
Thank you very much.
Because that helped really inflate the straw poll vote.
She's got over 7,000 followers, and I would appreciate if you guys follow, by the way. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Link in the description below.
Out of context, RBVA, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. So between the high Twitter count, the high straw poll count, and 2 votes from people who didn't vote on either, we got a total of 149 votes between these 2 movies, which surpasses the previous record that was held by Emperor's New Groove and Beauty and the Beast by nearly 5 times.
Oh my gosh.
So The Lion King did get a very nice score of 69, but Emperor's New Groove came out with 80, so it was the grand champion.
On the internet,
Nice.
a lot of people, and I imagine in the 90s they wouldn't have been wrong, but by now with Frozen everywhere, I'd like, no, this is nothing. A lot of people on the internet think The Lion King is overrated. The Lion King was the movie that came out the year I was born, so I'm very fond of that movie. But that could be another factor in why The Emperor's New Groove beat out Lion King.
Yeah,
I suppose.
I will admit I used to be in that boat for a while. That kind of the Lion King is overrated boat for a very long time. I've since
Also,
I've since jumped off that ship.
Like The Lion King to me, like I said numerous times, it's my absolute favorite of the Disney films and my favorite animation of all time. As much as I am happy for Emperor's New Groove victory, I'm like I said before, I'm glad The Lion King still put up a fighting chance.
Well, the reason that people say it's overrated is because it was a really good, really popular movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas
And that's what happens with really good movies when Disney realizes they're really good.
and so now, whenever I think about people who say that, oh man, Frozen is the first the first like really great Disney film ever since The Lion King. And I'm like, man, Frozen isn't even on the same level as The Lion King. What are you talking about?
I'm like, please.
Well, I mean, I don't want to compare Frozen to other movies because I feel like that would be unfair to both other movies and Frozen.
Yeah.
But I like Frozen more than most people probably do, at least on the internet. But I definitely understand why people got and continue to get tired of it. Disney wants to hammer that into the ground, and I wouldn't mind as much if they equally paid attention to like other movies. Like, I want more Moana stuff.
Yeah.
And,
Bring back the Black Cauldron, you cowards.
Yeah, but Lion King is kind of like the
be
Empire
careful what you wish for. They'll bring it back as a remake.
in the sense that every other film afterwards has been compared to it. So
The Black Cauldron is the one Disney film I want to see a live action remake of. Do it.
yeah.
Do it, you cowards.
Interesting trivia about the Black Cauldron actually. Despite it being like Disney's like one of Disney's like
Black
lowest
Sheep.
points.
like Black Sheep films, one of the few people who actually did like the film was the original author of the books.
And do you know that the first live-action Disney film rated PG and the first animated Disney film rated PG, which is The Black Cauldron, both started with V Black and were both huge flops? Do you know, like, the first PG-rated live-action Disney
Black
movie?
Hole, I've seen it.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
It's Disney trying to do Star Wars before they actually bought Star Wars.
And the Black Cauldron is also Danny
And
from
then
Game
they
Grumps'
actually
favorite
rejected
Disney
Star
film.
Wars.
I
they-
do not understand that opinion at all. But
They rejected
more
Star
power to him, I
Wars.
guess.
Yeah, like he always talks like whenever people ask him, like I remember when I was at a Q&A for one of their live concerts, and my question was, what are you like I asked Danny and Ninja Brian, like, what are y'all's favorite animated stuff? And Dan was like, my favorite Disney movie is The Black Cauldron, and I can't stand how horribly Disney treats that film. It makes me so depressed.
You know about the attraction in Japan? It's not there anymore, but it was a villain-themed attraction, and the main villain at the end was the Horn King.
Aww.
I
Tavern.
think Defunct Land talked about it.
Rest in peace, John Hurt.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they had Gurgi's Tavern for a while, but that got remodeled, I think, to Pecos Bills.
Every Disney movie, when it was coming out, especially in the Eisner era, had some sort of tie-in, whether it was just characters walking around or something, that they eventually got rid of once the movie didn't do as well as they wanted.
Right.
At least we're getting
Yeah.
The Princess and the
But
Frog.
sometimes they would bring it back in other parks.
Yeah, and they never gamble on TV because the show's usually over by the time it comes out. See Kim Possible and Phineas and Ferb.
Yes, I guess because the reason Universal did a Simpsons ride is because, which also another thing Universal has a ride of that Disney now owns, is because the Simpsons will never they'll never stop the Simpsons. Have no fear, they have stories for years.
Yes.
But I feel like there are shows that even though they're over, still I feel like Gravity Falls still has staying power even though it's over, and people will still be talking about it for years to come.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
So I don't think it's over is a good reason to not do an attraction. I think it's, of all the shows, it and probably Phineas and Ferb, which is their other big popular show, probably warrant an attraction the most of their TV shows.
Not to mention, Alex Hirsch mentioned that he's open to doing new stories with the characters, not necessarily continuing with the show, but like, yeah, that's why I think like a crossover with Rick and Morty would be sick.
I appreciate
Yeah. The creators themselves said they want a crossover with Rick and Morty and Gravity Falls. I'm like, do it.
Please.
one thing that a lot of people say, oh, this franchise goes on too long, but I think in moderation, franchises going on forever isn't too bad, because one franchise that, well, right now it's sort of in a limbo. I mean, they're trying to get it on Disney Plus. One franchise that has been around forever and has had pitfalls and people still love it and talk about it is the Muppets. And obviously
This
Mickey
is true.
Mouse
Right.
has been around forever.
Right.
I kind of feel bad for the Muppets. They haven't been anything really good in a couple years.
Yeah, that ABC show flopped.
Yeah, it
I
did.
heard it got better, but I didn't watch that
How's
much of it.
now their new one?
Yeah, the Muppets. I watched it. I tried to get into it, but like, it's just like not as fun. Like, it's just kind of too cynical. It's kind of too
the
dirty.
Muppets- Well, one thing I love about the Muppets, again, this kind of ties back to the subject of the stream, is there's no fourth wall in the Muppets.
Yeah.
That's an absolute crime. I think the only other thing in the Muppets that didn't use the fourth wall was the Muppets Take Manhattan. I'm like, that's your identity, but guys, that's your identity. You're supposed
And that's why it's one of my least favorite Muppet movies. Because
when you do like an office style show where the thing about is it's an interview show, so there's sort of no fourth wall, but it's kind of like it's not the same as doing just a wacky show where things are going wrong all the time.
Right, for Muppet movie, the fourth wall is just strong enough to keep the plot going, but they still make it funny.
Yeah,
That's why the Animaniacs reboot is so good, because it stays true to what made the original so great.
That's why anytime they bring back The Emperor's New Groove, this is one thing I actually love the TV show, even though it has a lot of problems. But one thing that I think they really did well, keeping consistent throughout the franchise and the video game and the TV show and the movies, is the lack of fourth wall.
Because that was its whole identity. It's what makes this such a special Disney film, and it's part of why it won the whole tournament, because there's no other Disney film like Emperor's New Groove.
Emperor's New Groove did get milked a little. I mean, it got a sequel, it got a show, it got a shovelware game, so...
I don't know why it got milked, because it didn't do good at the box office.
Because Disney was milking everything. I mean, the things that they didn't milk, the only reason they didn't milk them was they were canceled most likely by Lasseter before they were finished, because they were going to do a Treasure Planet sequel, they were going to do a Chicken Little sequel, so clearly they wanted to do a sequel to everything. And I guess the characters do lend themselves well to the idea of a TV show, even if the TV show's execution wasn't always the best. So it kind of made sense.
Look, if getting a sequel to Treasure Planet means we also have to get a sequel to Chicken Little, I'd be fine with that trade-off.
And also, didn't they try to give Cusco a girlfriend?
I like her. Shush. But to be fair, I don't really like Cusco very much.
He's a jerk off. These are not supposed to like him.
I know. I make that point. I'm like, the thing about Cusco is he's the most. I mean, there are other things about the show that are problematic that, because of the time it was made and stuff. The 2000s were amazingly not a progressive time.
Right.
Wait. So you're saying you don't like Cusco in the TV show, but you like him in the movie? Is that right?
I like him in the movie. I have mixed feelings about him in the TV show.
Right.
Oh my gosh, Miley Cyrus was in the show? What the heck?
She was the biggest star in the world. Of course she had to be.
I don't want Cusco to die, but he's an asshole.
Yeah. Oh, and Jessica DeKiko voiced the girl lead in the show.
I don't know. Does Cusco need a girlfriend? He's just kind of too standy, and he has that one scene in the movie where he just dumps them all.
Let me guess, you have a nice personality.
I feel like, I wonder if this is like the one thing that changed, that they think actually changed about him. Was in the movie, he does, obviously she's much older than him, but he does call Koch's wife pretty in the movie later. I'm wondering if he changed more than he's letting on, was the idea they were going for.
Yeah.
And they just didn't. They had different writers for like every episode, so they couldn't really keep consistency with that.
Okay, so the guy who voiced Cusco, his name is J.P. Mano, and he has some, or Mano, I don't know. And he's got some very interesting roles. He voiced Scrappy Rex from the live-action Scooby-Doo movie, like when Scrappy turned into a monster.
Yeah,
and
that
also,
was him.
Yeah, and he also voiced Scooby in Scooby-Doo 2 when he became like really smart from the potion.
And he was in the future as two characters.
And then he also voiced Randall in Kingdom Hearts 3. This guy has a really strange resume.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you know about the controversy
What's that?
about the voyeurism charges? So that's something that we may want to get another person to be Cusco.
Yeah.
David Spade.
Voyeurism?
Happened.
Peeping Tom.
He had
Oh, no.
in his house. I don't know what the full story is with that, but people were staying at his house and found out about it, and he went to jail for a little while because of it.
I would imagine the only reason he was in the Kingdom Hearts 3 video game was because he recorded it like years ago, and that game just took such a long time to make.
I wonder how a first group would look like in Kingdom Hearts.
No, it's still not in Kingdom Hearts. The Emperor's New Groove.
I don't know if I want that. I don't know if I want to see that in Kingdom Hearts. I don't know if they'd be able to do it justice.
Oh, I just looked up J.P. Minot. Apparently, he was also in the live-action Inspector Gadget.
That was one of his earliest roles.
No, I gotta get out of here.
No. Oh, Matthew Broderick, you have such a strange career, but I love you anyway.
Yeah.
I don't think that movie's as bad as people say, but it is kind of weird.
Judge it on my own. Because obviously, quality of a movie is largely subjective. So I could talk about why The Emperor's New Groove. There are things about it that definitely, they wouldn't and shouldn't do if they made it today.
Here's the thing. I think my opinion when it comes to that is I think the quality of a movie can be pretty objective, but how much a movie entertains you, I think that's subjective.
I think The Emperor's New Groove objectively is a pretty solid movie in terms of story. In terms of story structure and stuff, The Emperor's New Groove, I think it has a flow to it. It has good pacing.
It's as long as it needs to be.
All the characters serve the plot. Like, if you take out any of those characters, the plot would fall apart.
There's not one moment that's wasted. It's just joke after joke and fire.
Like, even the old man, who was in a one-off gag at the very beginning, if he would, he is essential to that movie because he represents how Cusco's arc is complete when he apologizes to him at the very end.
Right.
Sorry I was such a big jerk throwing you out the window. It's like,
they do the rule of 3 with him. They have the planting with the throwing out the window, the build-up where he says, beware the groove. And the payoff where he apologizes.
Yeah, that was the voice of Pidlet. Who did that.
John Fiedler. One of his last roles.
After, unfortunately, John Fiedler had passed away, they got the person who replaced him to do him in his one or two appearances in a TV show.
Really?
12 Angry Men, and he still has the same voice, even though it's 12 Angry Men.
Oh my god.
I saw a clip of him in one episode of Star Trek.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that clip too. He was saying, die, everybody die. I'm like, Piglet is telling everybody to die.
Yeah.
Everything.
My God, Piglet, has the 100 Acre Wood really been that traumatizing to you?
I watched all the Star Treks with my mom, and we were both taken aback. We were surprised.
No.
By the way, I just found out that 12 Angry Men is free on YouTube, so I'm gonna watch that later.
That clip from Star Trek where he says "die, die, die" is on YouTube.
Yeah.
I might have to find it and animate Piglet saying that.
Do it.
Oh,
do it.
Thank you.
Their own style, but
thank you YouTube for making this film free to watch.
And 12 Angry Men, that's pretty good.
Another great movie that's free to watch. This is just random out of nowhere, other than the fact that it's a silly comedy, I guess. And Disney owns it now because 20th Century Fox is Freaked, which I believe is on YouTube. Probably not legally, but it is on YouTube with Alex Winter.
I think Parasite's on there now too.
Pet fame.
Yeah, but I'm freaked. I'll look that up. But anyway, why we're all here, Micah, you provide your analysis. How did The Emperor's New Groove pull off the impossible?
The internet. And also, when the movie came out, even though I liked it okay, but I didn't become a fan until much later. In fact, the TV show helped get me back into the movie. So that's a big reason why I'm a fan of the TV show. A lot of the people who saw it, who like it now, either were kids when it came out and grew up with it, or were teenagers in high school, or were college kids. And a lot of those people are on the internet.
I remember I rented it once when I was 6, liked it fine, and then
I was 6 when it came out.
Yeah, I kind of grew into it when it got older.
It came out 20 years ago, and I'm 26, so.
I'm 1 year younger, so I waited for the video. Then I rented it.
I never saw it in the theaters. That's something that may surprise people.
I believe it because I heard your first episode and Disney went with 102 Dalmatians.
They did. Thank you for listening to that. You should listen to all my episodes if you want. I mean, I'm not going to force you to.
100. Wait, what about 100?
Listen to all my episodes and I'll burn your house to the ground.
They marketed that more than Emperor's New Groove, and because they thought it would be the bigger draw.
102 Dalmatians. Gotcha.
Yes, the other reason was my parents did not. Well, they still don't particularly like him. I think they like this movie okay, and it grows on people who don't like it at first. Not everyone, but some people who just think it's okay at first, but after multiple viewings over an extended period of time, don't force them to watch it over and over again in a row. It grows on people. I think.
It's because there's so many little jokes that you take.
But my parents do not like David Spade, so they did not want to take me to the theater to see it. They said, "No, we're going to wait till it comes on video and rent it from, I guess, Blockbuster," because that was.
I talked recently with my mom, and she didn't detect Eartha Kitt as Yzma. That's how good she was.
Blockbuster, a relic from an ancient time.
Yeah, like I remember. I think I
saw Eartha Kitt, and Eartha Kitt is Yzma, even though not for the TV show, but for a couple of obscure theme park things, they got someone to replace her, and they do an okay job. People think of Yzma, they think of Eartha Kitt.
She won an Emmy for that role.
Yes, she won 2 daytime Emmys for the TV show,
and not the movie.
Yeah,
the movie the Emmys are a TV. Award show.
Oh, okay.
I think
but they do something Oscars do not honor voiceover work.
If they did, if they did and it was fair, everyone in this movie would have won an award.
To me, one of the biggest sins at the Oscars is not honoring June Foray before her passing.
Or Mel Blanc.
To me, one of the biggest sins of the Oscars is, for one thing, they don't see all the movies that they're supposed to be voting
They
for.
openly and blatantly admitted that.
Yeah, it's pretty disgusting.
Animation, they're like, oh, animation is just for kids, and it's like, no. Like, even Disney, who largely markets their stuff to kids, the point of Disney from the get-go was that it's for everyone.
Walt Disney himself said so. He said, I don't make movies for kids. I make them for the kid in all of us.
Yeah,
as much with the words out of my mouth.
Kids are just grown-ups anyway. Adults are just kids grown up. I butchered that quote.
This movie has one of the dirtiest. Emperor's New Groove is one of the dirtiest jokes in any Disney movie.
The dirtiest Disney movie that's not an R-rated movie owned by Touchstone, though it was owned by Touchstone, but it's under the Disney label now, but it's always been owned by Disney. Roger Rabbit. I see people talk about other Roger Rabbit knockoffs that are, dirtier and saying, oh, it's like the raunchy Roger Rabbit. It's like Roger Rabbit was plenty raunchy already.
Yeah, I mean, just look at Jessica Rabbit.
I
can't stop looking at her, man.
Yeah, but Kronk pitching a tent, that has to be one of the naughtiest jokes I've seen.
Yeah, I think the joke is, obviously there are adults at Disney, so it could be a double entendre, but also Yzma gets this huge, elaborate tent, and Kronk gets this tiny little waist thing at his waist, so it's like it works on multiple levels. It works. If you have a dirty mind, it works one way, and if you just think, oh, it's funny because she has the big tent all to herself, and he just gets this dinky little thing that he doesn't even fit in.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was actually an accident and they didn't intend for it to be dirty, and it just kind of worked out that way.
Yeah.
I'm legitimately just now making that connection.
Yeah, because a lot of the humor in the Emperor's New Groove, even though it does have some adult humor, a lot of the humor is humor that works for everybody.
And one joke I noticed on Twitter is when Yzma pushed the potion away in the cactus, eventually the cactus takes the shape of a llama.
Right. This movie that I don't know. I think I learned about that on the internet before I actually caught that.
Yeah, so that's like a subtle bit of foreshadowing.
There's so many things. The foreshadowing, and sometimes it always amuses me when they foreshadow things that you already know are going to happen because they revealed it in the trailer. And of course, when they're making the movie, they don't know what the trailer is going to be like, so that's not their fault. But
I took a course on how to make trailers, just the trailer, and I learned how different it is from total movie making.
When earlier we were talking about how this film does a really good job with subversion when it comes to comedy, and one of my favorite subversion jokes is when Yzma has Cusco and Pacha backed into a corner, and she's pulling up her skirt, and they're like, no, but she shows a knife, and they're like, oh, okay, that's fine. So it's they would prefer the much more life-threatening thing over her showing her skirt, pulling up her skirt.
No.
Oh, and he was really old, so that would have been gross.
Yes, that's the joke. There's some things that I could understand. Some people that it's not funny because it's the joke is just, oh, she's old. And I was like, that's fine if you don't think it's funny because it's just that one joke. But the performances of the voice actors, and especially Eartha Kitt, I mean, obviously she won awards and everything for the character. The highlight for everyone agrees that Yzma, in the whole Emperor's New Groove thing, everybody agrees that overall in everything, she's the thing that everybody agrees is always great.
Yeah, I mean, we've always said that really the true MVPs of this film are the casting directors, like the people who decided on all the voices, because they did such a good job finding people to bring all of these characters to life.
He wrote the script, but it was also largely board driven, so it was sort of like a hybrid, I believe. I talked to one of the storyboard artists.
Imagine my surprise when I heard Ida the Owl Lady coming out of Pacha's life.
Yes, Wendy Malick.
See, here's the thing about that, because I had watched The Emperor's New Groove plenty of times, but I didn't pay too much attention to her voice. But after I had finished The Owl House and I watched The Emperor's New Groove again, I was like, oh my gosh, it's Ida.
Yeah, her voice is so distinct. I love it.
I love her voice so much, man. She's like a slightly older version of Susan Egan.
She is, and some people have confused the two, apparently. I've seen people on Twitter confuse the two.
Interesting.
Yeah,
so
I remember I was kind of in love with her voice as a kid.
They're both really good at sarcasm, which The Emperor's New Groove, that's another thing that the whole franchise kind of runs on. Not just obviously from Cusco because David Spade, but all the characters have snark and wit throughout the whole thing. Kronk, there's some scenes in the movie where I legitimately can't tell if he's being an idiot or if he's just being sarcastic. And it could be either way. It would work for the character either way. It would be in character. So
yeah,
and
like, they
how did you do this to me? I practically raised him. Yeah, you think it would have turned out better.
Yeah, it's up to interpretation, really.
Kronk is one of those characters where he's kind of dumb, but he also has an intelligence to him. It's just not a conventional intelligence.
Mm-hmm. He's what we would call a savant.
Because he's not the sharpest tool in the shed, but he's also like a master cook.
Yeah, he's a master expert.
And he got super offended by her not.
Lots of people say Cusco is the best Disney princess, but if you're gonna make an Emperor's New Groove character, compare them to a Disney princess. Kronk, I think, has the most comparisons because he cooks and cleans.
He talks to animals.
He talks to animals. So
that is true.
Yeah,
I will.
The villain's henchman, the villain's sidekick in this movie is the character who's the friend to all living things.
Yeah.
Even though this film has celebrities, voicing the main characters, and they do all work well for their, respective. It's a good casting. I will say there are a lot of voice actors in this film that get their own standout moments. Like there's Jess Harnell voices a guard who throws the old man out. It's like, sorry, but you throw up. And Roger, and Roger Bumpass voiced the guard who was like, I got turned into a cow, so can I go home?
That's the voice. That's the voice of Squidward, right?
Yes.
Yeah. He also voiced an elephant in Tarzan, but doing the voice of Dr. Gilliard.
And
he's right. They're native to South America.
And he's also
the only thing I think I really like about Tarzan. I'm so sorry.
He's also the scientist father from Invader Zim.
Oh, really?
I don't have a problem with the
and he's at the bar in Bug's Life.
Oh, yeah.
Bloody Mary, all positive.
Yeah, once I heard that, I couldn't unhear it.
The reason that, even though it generally does have some hilarious moments, and will always be a fan of it, like the sequel and the TV show don't work as well, is because they don't have the thing where everything falls in it's all coming together. Everything falls into place. The voice acting, the story, everything worked. And it worked, and they did it in a year and a half because they were running off from a different movie that it was going to be. And that's just amazing.
Come on, you got Tom Jones as your theme song guy. What's not to love about this film?
I
The
talked about
only
it.
implication this movie gives is that the character who sings is a slave in the palace, so Cusco just has a mini Tom Jones to provide him his entrance.
Yes, Tom Jones, the famous performer of everyone's favorite song, "What's New Pussycat."
Which he does not say at the end of the movie. Which is okay, because I don't want too many pop culture references, but sometimes I think it would be kind of funny if he started singing that.
What's New Pussycat?
I feel like it's not unusual would be more fitting.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Well, you know what happens at the end of the movie.
I haven't seen Crunk's New Groove, the sequel. How's that one?
It's very what's it called when people are very split about their
Divisive.
Divisive or something. People aren't
Mixed
fighting each other over it, but some people think, and this baffles me because Hunchback 2 exists.
Yeah.
Some people think it's one of the worst sequels ever. I say it's probably not objectively not as good as miraculously, even though it does have problems. The Lion King 1.5 is a really good movie, especially the animation in it for a Disney sequel. And The Lion King 2, it has problems. All of them have problems. The Emperor's New Groove even has problems. That's just how things made by humans work. Kronk's New Groove is one of the less bad ones, and it has some genuinely funny moments. But it definitely does not. It's not as iconic or everything. I can't memorize all of Kronk's New Groove like it can memorize the entire script of the Emperor's New Groove. And no, I'm not.
Emperor's New Groove is just infinitely quotable. That's one of its great qualities, is that it has so many great lines.
And I think a lot of that is attributed to David Reynolds, the screenwriter. Punched up a bunch of dialogue.
It's the SpongeBob effect. You don't think too much about it on your first viewing, but then you watch it again and you catch up on all these little things you missed and all these jokes. And that's why it.
Sorry.
I've seen someone compare this movie and call it an extended episode of Freakazoid.
Or Animaniacs. Or
yeah.
just
people. So yeah.
Anything Steven Spielberg has been a part of, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Sort of
Everyone compares
humor.
I feel like Freakazoid needs more attention.
Yeah,
Freakazoid, they're getting a crossover with Teen Titans Go, so
I saw it actually. It's actually pretty good.
I like the Teen Titans Go movie.
Teen Titans Go got better.
Yeah. And finally, we've got the one from the Batman and Robin films. Blows it up.
Yeah.
What I was gonna say was, you don't think about it is a great way to sum up the entire franchise. Because the entire thing runs on not thinking too much about things.
Why is this the Incan Empire, and yet they have references to The Fly and this other modern stuff?
Well, apparently, according to, and there could be conflicting stories here, but I came up with explanation. I came up with theories that tie all the continuity, not all the continuity areas, because I want to leave some of them for comedic effect, but tie some of the stuff between the TV show and the movies together. According to the screenwriter, when asked about The Fly, he said, "Oh, that's Cusco's dad."
Oh.
Explain. I haven't seen the show. Could you please explain?
In the movie, The Fly in the movie, the writer of the movie said,
film. They say, "Help me!"
And in the TV show, all they say about his dad is that he was lost at sea. So my theory is his dad was going to go on a trip, but before he went on the trip, Yzma hosted a dinner party and turned him into a fly, and he flew away into the jungle. And unlike real flies, potion human to flies live as long as a human does. So that's why 18 years later, or 17 or 16, however old Cusco was, like 2 or something when his dad
18.
went
Oh, wait. So there was his dad was turned into a fly?
Yeah.
According to I think the writer just made this up on the spot and said it's canon now. Is that they can do that?
It's like how Freddie Benson and iCarly, his father is Barry Benson.
What?
I forgot.
That was
I forgot
joke for the writers too.
I forgot that there was a fly in the Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah, it's that help me, the fly.
Oh, the fly that the spider eats?
Yeah, it's from the 1956 horror film The Fly. Mom said the joke was thrown in there for all the parents in the audience.
That's the thing about the pop culture. A lot of people also say, "Oh, Emperor's New Groove is kind of like Dreamer because it makes pop culture references." But there's like 2 or 3. One of them was forced by the executives, the Wizard of Oz reference.
Oh yeah.
But all of them are references to things that have already stood the test of time, not current things.
Yeah, it's like old Simpsons. Old Simpsons limited their... Newer Simpsons get some modern stuff, but old Simpsons limited strictly to classics or stuff that was already a comedy to begin with.
And that's why people are a bit harder on Ralph Breaks the Internet as opposed to the first Wreck-It Ralph, because...
But it definitely is not the best.
Because Wreck-It Ralph only makes references to video games, which have stood the test of time, but Ralph Breaks the Internet makes references to things that are going to age like cheese.
Ralph Breaks the Internet kind of reminds me, in, I guess some could say in a bad way, but it kind of it had one of the people who created both the original and the sequel worked on The Simpsons and Futurama, so it had some of the Princess joke, well, especially that one song, the song that Vanellope sings.
Basically, the whole premise was like an episode of Futurama.
Yeah, it feels like something out of The Simpsons or Futurama, and I just really like seeing that in a Disney movie. So that's one thing I'll say about Ralph Breaks the Internet.
So...
And Alan Menken did it, so...
That's right.
So, yeah, with The Emperor's New Groove, we're pretty sure it won the whole thing because of the impact it's had on the internet and how much people have started to like retroactively remember this film and have been using it in memes and stuff. And so now that
first came out,
so now that
was a flop, and Fantasia was a flop. Now they're considered classics. So
does this mean the Black Cauldron will be considered a classic in a few years?
I don't know. I have no idea because I don't know. I mean, it's The Emperor's New Groove is a lot younger than the Black Cauldron, and it's already climbing the ladder, so to speak, to becoming a classic considered by the company themselves.
And then when it happens, Danny Sexfang will be like, "And you all laughed at me."
You said, wait, Micah, you said Emperor's New Groove's at the parks. How so?
Emperor's New Groove in the parks?
Yeah, you said it was...
has been, well, when the movie first came out, for one thing, they had walk-around characters like they did for every movie when it came out.
Even Chicken Little.
Yes, and they had a giant Chicken Little, but that's not what we're talking about. Chicken Big,
well,
I guess.
Let's not talk about that.
Inflatable Chicken Little. Same director as The Emperor's New Groove. It was not the movie he wanted to make, though. Chicken Little.
Yeah, it was corporate mandate, I heard. But anyway, what other Emperor's New Groove stuff was at the parks?
So there's an attraction at Magic Kingdom. It's an obscure little attraction called Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom. I wasn't being sarcastic. It really is obscure. It's sort of like a card game, but you walk around at different points in the park. And one of the villains you fight is, or I guess 2 or 1.5, because I don't know how much he qualifies as a villain. Villains you fight are Yzma and Kronk. And the only person who reprises their role, because they can't get David Spade, and because Eartha Kitt, unfortunately, is no longer with us, is Patrick Warburton, because he'll do anything. And God bless him for it.
I saw those videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm glad they give him...
Hang on. I'll go to behind the voice actors if you'll give me a minute or less.
And of course, Emperor's New Groove was on House of Mouse, though they included every Disney movie at that point. So
yeah. I believe Yzma and Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom and a later event I'll talk about in a moment, which I will also do an episode about this on the podcast eventually. Leslie Carrera Rudolph, I believe, according to BehindTheVoices.com, voice actors.
Huh.
She does a pretty decent job. There was an event in 2018 called Max Live. It was a one-day thing hosted by Max Goof. Yzma and Cusco had a sing-off, and in that, Yzma sung "Snuff Out the Light."
So that didn't go to waste.
Well, it also is on the soundtrack, so...
I think, did they play it over the credits?
No, they don't, because it doesn't really fit with Yzma's character motivations in the new movie, because she's not as... The whole thing of Kingdom of the Sun is she wants to be beautiful again, and the Emperor's New Groove, Yzma knows she's beautiful, so...
Because sometimes they'll take a song they cut out from the normal movie and put it over the credits.
Yeah, they overcompensated by giving her a song in the sequel and a couple of songs in the TV show.
Imagine if they did that with Aladdin.
Right.
And what else was I going to say? So that happened before, a little while before that in 2013. Oh, the Match 5 event. The Match 5 event was at Eric.
Yoda.
Yeah.
You got to disconnect Yoda.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Let me do that.
Is everything okay?
Sometimes he echoes. He just needs to disconnect and reconnect.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, you're good.
Max Live was at Disneyland Paris, I should mention, and a few years before that in 2013, they brought back Kronk, Cusco, and Yzma, but originally they just had Llama Cusco. But in 2013, when they brought them back to Paris, they got a human Cusco and a Llama Cusco.
Oh, that's cool.
You don't normally get to meet like a human and beast, but I know most people wouldn't want to meet the human version of the beast anyways, but...
Yeah, but they'd have to be really separate and really spaced out. Like Mickey's never in like the same place at once.
I heard one story during the stream I was talking about earlier, not on the podcast, but before we set things up, where from a cast member that when two of the actors, not necessarily two different forms, but like when there's two Tiggers, they'll say, "Genie, stop pretending to be Tigger," to
Really?
make it work. They have everything thought out there.
Oh, that's cool. This is just the genie in disguise. I like that idea.
Uh-huh.
And if you see two genies, the explanation is, well, he duplicated himself. Even though he says he can never be duplicated, he duplicates himself in the movie.
Friend like me.
Wait. Sorry. That's for what? That Tigger. They're saying genies have been Tigger.
Like
What is that? What's that? What's that from?
Character. In the Disney parks, when two characters accidentally end up in the same place, and two people are supposed to be the same character.
Oh, that's funny.
Say, Genie, stop pretending to be that character.
That's funny. I like that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's very creative. That's very creative.
And I forgot what I was going to say next.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. I guess we should talk more about the Emperor's New Groove. And at the Disney, do you remember? Mostly in between, but also when it was actually in Florida in animation studio, they had an attraction, and not just the Robin Williams thing, but after the studio closed down, they kept some of the interactive stuff. One of the interactive things was an ink and paint station where you color characters digitally, and it was hosted by Kronk.
Oh.
Also, it doesn't really count, but hello, and welcome to Soarin'. My name is Patrick, and I'll be your chief flight attendant today. Yeah. He's also on Star Tours, so he's all over that park.
In the Star Wars universe now. Yay.
Huh?
Well, I was thinking back to the Emperor's New School. The strange thing about the voice acting on that show, for the first season, I think Pacha was voiced by Fred.
I can't pronounce his last name.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
Fred Tatascore, but the strange thing is,
something.
I think it's Tadashore.
Shori.
Fred Tatascore, yeah. But the thing is, well, he voiced him in the first season. In later seasons, he would be voiced by John Goodman again.
Seasons, and there were 52 episodes, and they did have proper finales. The show ended, and it didn't get canceled. It ended. And yeah, John Goodman came back for the second season.
It's so strange because usually it's usually the other way around. First they get the celebrity, and then he can't be on the show anymore. Then they get a replacement. But here they got a replacement, and then they got the original back.
I feel like
That's really interesting.
The show's never objectively as good as the movie, but I feel like the second season is better than the first season in terms of they try to do more with the characters than just, hey, remember this joke from the movie?
Oh yeah.
Which is what they did throughout the first season.
So I just found out some very cursed information. Patrick Warburton, in next year he's going to be in a Baby Shark show.
Oh boy.
Oh my goodness.
And that show also has a lot of really talented voice actors on it, like Kimiko Glenn and Eric Edelstein.
There'll be a baseball reference.
It's a show. I mean, they're gonna get the best people they can get.
Wow.
Okay.
They got Grizz from We Bear Bears and frickin' Bridget from Close Enough.
Was Lena in a DuckTales reboot, and
Penny Parker.
yeah, that's her name, Penny Parker in Into the Spider-Verse, right?
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, they're all gonna be in that show. I didn't even know that show was a thing until 5 minutes ago.
Were you just looking at Patrick Warburton on IMDb?
BTVA.
Yeah, and I know, and I pointed this out to the podcast, that Patrick Warburton has tendency to be typecast as characters with very pronounced chins.
Yeah, he's typecast as those in characters, big tough characters or big dumb characters or combinations. Because
But no, he's gonna be Grandpa in that show.
Grandpa Shark. Anyway, live action.
Yeah, I remember Family Guy making Family Guy making a brief joke about Joe's chin. Like, Peter, Joe, you got to do anything for $10. I have a request. Yay, Joe's chin!
I have a pedantic shark fact for you that has nothing to do with the Emperor's New Groove. Sorry.
Bring it on. Go ahead.
Well, you made it. You brought it all together.
Yeah.
It's all coming together.
Bring it on. So the whole premise of Baby Shark is they do the baby shark and then they do the whole shark's family. Sharks abandon their young.
Sharks are solid.
The whole bit in Finding Nemo where he's like, I never knew my father. Also written by David Reynolds, by the way, along with Andrew Stanton.
Dang. But even though Kronk is great, Brock Samson is still my favorite Patrick Warburton role.
I like Patrick. My favorite Patrick Warburton role is any of them.
Yeah, he also played Lemony Snicket in live action.
Yeah, he's saying that.
What was crazy about
Patrick Warburton
is he never broke character. He could come up in a clown suit, or he could just be doing these crazy
diving suit.
Yeah, he just still have that same voice. He'd never snicker or laugh.
And can I talk about Yzma and Kronk for a minute? And one thing I love about them?
Yes.
Sure.
Go ahead.
One thing I love about Yzma and Kronk is they are both each other's straight man.
That's true. That is awesome.
They alternate between being the chaotic and crazy character or silly and wacky character and being the straight man to the other silly and wacky character. And that is amazing.
They're such a interesting duo that I don't understand how anyone could have possibly come up with such a pairing as Patrick Warburton and Eartha Kitt, because it works. I don't know.
People. The movie it was originally gonna be. It was invented specifically for Groove. So we wouldn't. You would sacrifice. You would get Snuff Out the Light, but you wouldn't have Kronk.
I do hope at some point we get a movie version of what Emperor's New Groove was supposed to be, because I do think that would be an interesting.
They didn't repurpose, try to retrofit any of those plot lines, except I guess the love interest, to be more silly to fit within a sequel or anything, because they could have.
Yeah, just the idea of.
Yzma just decides one day, I'll get rid of Cusco by blocking out the sun. Doesn't make sense. Who cares? It's Yzma.
Also, the setting is unique, having it be in the Incan Empire during the time that Europe would call the Middle Ages. Can't think of too many movies with this sort of setting.
Man, just think. Owen Wilson, he could have been remembered for a Disney movie, but instead he's remembered for Cars.
Yeah.
Wait, who?
Wow. The first Cars was all right, but not.
I remember Cusco is named after the historic capital of the Inca.
That is correct. I am not an expert, but the movie did inspire me to do a lot of deep diving and research into the culture and what is accurate and what isn't. And there's a striking balance between, blatant inaccuracies for the purpose of comedy, or just because they decide, we're doing a comedy, we shouldn't really care too much about accuracy, and stuff that they actually pulled from research trips and stuff, like the steep stairs and the canals and stuff. That's all real, or based on real stuff.
Mm-hmm. Apparently, they really did have food trading posts.
Oh yeah, they had lots. They had roads. They didn't have wheels, but they had roads that you could walk. That you would walk on with your llama and walk the llama.
Yeah, the travelers, they would have little mini restaurant outposts. It wouldn't be like the one you saw in the movie, but
it wouldn't be Bob's Big Boy, but except the Inca version.
You'd have food places though.
Yeah, that diner scene might be one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie.
Yeah, because they just.
I can't really pick a favorite scene because the whole movie is just so perfect to me. But the restaurant scene, if you want to teach people like give an example of great comedic timing, the restaurant scene is the perfect.
Like I think what sells it for me is the moment where Kronk inadvertently makes the chef quit, and just on a whim he takes over his duties. Like,
Yeah,
three orcas wearing pants, plate of hot air, basket of grandma's breakfast, and Jay's bull to the gill. Got it.
At first it seems completely random, but then you go, no wait, Kronk is a cook. His whole life has been, from what we've seen of it anyways, it has been built around his cooking abilities, so it makes perfect sense that he would take over as the cook.
I think my favorite part of the restaurant scene is when they trick Yzma into thinking it's her birthday and everyone starts singing. Kronk comes out just saying, "It's your birthday." The way he says that kills every single time.
With the sombrero and the people singing, I send that to all the people, all my mutuals on Twitter, not on my podcast account, but on my Micah Hirsh account at Micah Hirsh. I send the gif of that to them whenever it's their birthday.
Likewise, I actually sent a lot of my friends like a video of the Embers Groove of that whole scene on their birthday. It's like my tradition.
I think my favorite scene in the movie has to be the bridge scene.
Bridge scene is like the
bridge falls and they climb up.
Yeah, because it's the catalyst, for Cusco's character development.
They call back to it
during the climax, right? And
there's a lot of great, there's some things in this that isn't a gag, that's just an important story point. But there's one gag that they kept reusing in the show that I will defend because it was already a running gag in the movie is, sorry to divert from that scene, I'll get back to it in a minute, the lever gag. They always change it now to be different. And one time they pull it and nothing happens and they take the stairs in the TV show.
Pull the lever, Kronk!
They look around, take the stairs? Sure, why not?
So that's pretty good.
There's moments in that show that were really funny. So I will defend it even though it does have problems. I won't deny it has problems, but I say it's something that I'm glad exists.
I'm glad a lot of animated films, they'll have the second act breakup. That's super common. I appreciate the way this film handled that because
it's almost when it had breakup really in this one.
Right, because it didn't feel like it dragged on for too long, and it also explains why Cusco was at his lowest point at the very beginning.
Will always be a snarky, selfish brat. He's just
the narration is just great. It's like one of the best narration gags.
What I was saying before about the climbing the thing with the bats, and imagine that in 4D.
No. Yeah, because they all went into his mouth.
Yeah, but first they fly around and they blast air on your head or something.
And you feel the experience of falling into a pit because someone pulled the wrong lever.
And going over there's so much. So they've done some things in the theme parks, but there's so much more they could do with this in the theme parks that they haven't done. And maybe in 2040 they'll get an Emperor's New Grooves dedicated attraction entirely to it of some kind.
Yeah,
it took 50 years for Pinocchio to get a ride in Disneyland. So,
and I'm pretty sure by 2040 things will be back to normal.
God, let's hope.
I mean, things are never going to be back to normal, but they'll be hopefully closer to normal.
We don't have to. Normalcy for me will be not having to wear a mask to the grocery store.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll deal with it because I don't want to be a jerk and give other people diseases if I happen to have one. But it's not the best experience in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Nope.
And I'm not going back to the parks until it's safe.
Yeah, I know that Disney wants to make money, but they probably should not have opened up their park so soon.
They should not have. They should have figured out a backup plan. They should have done they have streaming. They should have done something special for the people who missed the parks on Disney Plus. They already have a bunch of park content. They should do something specific, like if you missed the parks, watch this stuff, a collection, if you will.
If you missed the parks, pay for $40 for Mulan instead of just $30.
Why would you want to watch the Mulan remake if you missed the part?
No, but it's because they want to make more money.
You're missing the experience of overpaying for
wanted
shit.
to make more money, and they realized, hey, this doesn't work, so they stopped.
Yeah, so they're not going to do that for Soul. And WB followed suit.
So I would pay. I'm the only person on Earth who would do it, but I would pay $30 for brand new Emperor's New Groove content if it wasn't a live action remake on Disney Plus. If it was animated.
You know what? If they did a live action remake of Emperor's New Groove, I would be morbidly curious to see what the heck that would actually turn
I'm on
into.
the podcast because I have to.
I mean, they'd have to get Patrick Warburton to reprise Kronk.
That's the thing with the casting. If they do a remake, I can't imagine anyone besides Patrick Warburton as Kronk, even though he's much older than Kronk is supposed to be. But everyone else, even though the cast and David Spade, Eartha Kitt, they're all perfect for the roles. I would want, if they did a live action remake, I would want them to cast authentic Peruvian actors.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I don't think they would be able to get Patrick Warburton because people would complain about him being white.
I mean, they would be wrong. He is white.
Don't
But
worry, they already solved that one in the Atlanta remake.
Because
They
Kronk
have
isn't.
white people, they have a bunch of white people that they painted in the Aladdin remake in the
Oh
background.
God.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
And then they took one character who was just a one-off character who was everyone in Aladdin was of color. They made him white, and then now they're giving him his own Disney Plus spinoff or something.
Aladdin Tudyk's character?
No, I don't know. This was a much younger actor, I believe. I think Alan Tudyk was Yago. He just did squawks though. He didn't talk, as far as I know.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Because that's how you improve a character, by removing their character.
And also, one thing I forgot to point out in the recap that I was going to say, Emperor's New Groove beat 3 of the 4 1 seeds.
That's true. That's right.
So, like, for the Aladdin remake, why couldn't they just get Gilbert Gottfried back to do the squats for Yago? He would have been fine.
Coming back to do Pooh.
Like,
too.
That just shows how powerful the groove was.
one of the things that was established on Aladdin.
Without Aladdin. And
One
Hercules, for that matter.
One of the things that Yago did in Aladdin is that he pretended to be a real parrot, and he did the squats fine. So you could have just did it here.
He voices Affleck. He knows how to do bird squawks.
I think they replaced him, but he did voice Affleck at one point.
Yeah, that's true.
I think Godfrey got canceled though.
He got fired because he made jokes about the earthquakes in Japan.
Like the week after.
That's not the worst thing you could. I mean, that's not the worst thing you could do in the world. But you should, if you do something like that and people get upset, the best way to handle it is to apologize.
Well, I think he's doing. Well, Gilbert Gottfried's doing fine now. He's just. I just don't think he's voicing Affleck anymore.
Nope, he's not.
As an annoying voice. There's a scene in the musical episode where Yzma wants to give a Joey Lawrence voice character an annoying voice. So she tests potion and Kronk tests one. He says, "Let me try it." And he's like, "You're testing 1, 2, 3." He's like, "How horribly annoying."
Really? Gilbert Gottfried was on that show?
Which
Yeah.
show?
For a quick one line.
What show was that?
Emperor's New School.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people call the Emperor's New School. John O'Hurley, Ben Stein. Obviously, probably not that surprising.
Gottfried's just typecast as the annoying voice. Again, going back to Family Guy, he was the voice of what Brian hears when he hears a dog whistle.
And I find it, like, even though he's got an annoying voice, like, I love his voice for some reason. I can't explain why.
Yeah,
it's distinct and iconic. I'll say that.
Obviously, it's not as screechy, and it's mostly because the Emperor's New Groove just made me think of Cusco. But I feel the same way about David Spade, even though I don't think he's as annoying as Gilbert Gottfried in terms of, Gilbert Gottfried's much louder. David Spade isn't shrieking all the time; he's more whiny. But yeah, I whenever I hear David Spade, I think of Cusco, and I can't not like him anymore.
Yeah, I would. Have you guys ever heard of the show Historical Roasts?
No, I believe I have.
It was a special on Netflix, and basically the premise was a bunch of people dressed up as historical figures, and they did roasts of people. And one of the episodes was the roast of Anne Frank, and Gilbert Gottfried played Adolf Hitler.
Oh God.
and he
my.
just used like his normal voice playing Hitler, and then when Anne Frank got up, he was like, "Hey Hitler, guess what? You think you're so great, but we got a Jew to play you, and it was the most annoying Jew we could find."
Did you see the movie that is admittedly a guilty pleasure, the Seth MacFarlane movie, A Million Ways to Die in the West?
I have.
Who is that movie?
Well, that as Abraham Lincoln, or probably someone pretending to be Abraham Lincoln.
Oh.
And he's doing a whole speech about how he feels great and stuff.
Interesting. Yeah, that film has a lot of things that, when you watch it again, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this was in the movie, and I forgot about it. Like a Back to the Future reference for no reason, just there for the sake of it.
That's because Seth MacFarlane is a fan of Back to the Future.
And also Django appears at the very end for no reason.
I mean, everything Seth MacFarlane does is, to some extent, no matter the quality, fan service for himself and his wife. And there is, the quality varies, especially depending how long the thing has been going on.
It's very hit or miss, and I could respect that, because when he's funny, he's really damn funny.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think I saw the later episodes, but I saw some of Orville, and even though it's clearly he's trying to do Star Trek, I at least appreciate that he's not just trying to do Family Guy again.
Yeah, it seems like he's trying to do his own thing, and I appreciate that.
That Fox doesn't want him to.
And he is a legitimately talented person.
A very talented singer. I'm sure that he's problematic in some way. I mean, well, he's obviously. Problematic people can't have talent.
I think just the main issue with things like A Million Ways to Die in the West is he didn't really collaborate enough. Like, he tried to do everything for that, and he should have consulted with more people when making that movie, I think.
Yeah.
Zootopia, try everything is bad because it teaches kids to try everything, like drugs and stuff.
Yeah, it's got unfortunate implications.
That was totally random, but Eddie was wanted to try everything, and that was what came to my mind.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. Well, whatever, let it go, man. No. Hakuna Matata.
I feel like I heard somebody talking about that, and I think it might have been you.
Which one?
The try everything, unfortunate implications.
I just said it just now.
Okay. Well, I heard someone talking about it sometime earlier in the year. Not long.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Never mind.
So back to the groove.
Yeah.
Back on topic. The thing we're supposed to be talking about. Hey, at least I know that I'm interested in things other than The Emperor's New Groove. So that's good.
You've learned very quickly that even though this is a Disney podcast, we talk about a wide variety of things and tend to just go off topic.
Yeah.
We kind of go off topic, and that's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Like in the first episode of my podcast, we did a whole tangent about the parks.
Yeah. Just goofballs talking about Disney and related stuff and Shrek for some reason.
Well, Shrek is a parody of satire and parody of Disney, so.
Yeah.
And, someday Disney will probably own Shrek because they're Disney.
It has aired on Disney Channel before.
Yeah, but Disney Channel just licenses whatever they feel like.
Right.
That just scares me.
Despicable Me has been on Disney Channel. That's a Universal movie. I'm pretty sure for a long time Universal is not going to want to sell to Disney unless they're. I guess Fox was in a tough situation. It was either
Universal has Comcast, which is sort of like the digital Disney.
They're like Disney, but
reality was a thing.
I don't want to say bigger, but I want to say they're a telecommunications company and also an entertainment company. They have.
It feels weird for Shrek to be on Disney Channel because as good as that movie is, it's one of the only films I can think of that was made purely out of spite.
That's the one thing I don't like about it. And also, everyone compares The Emperor's New Groove to it, and I feel like they're very different.
No, they definitely have different senses of humor.
Emperor's New Groove came out first, so it's
it did come out first. A lot of people don't know that because Shrek's more popular. At least it is for now.
Right. But Emperor's New Groove is sort of more postmodern, more absurd, silly humor. Shrek is a fractured fairy tale. Emperor's New Groove is sort of like
has fractured fairy tale elements, but it's a lot less pop culture-y and a lot less taking the, can I say piss?
Go ahead.
Taking the piss out of Disney. It's more like
honestly, if it takes the piss at anything, it's logic.
I mean, in itself.
And I love it when films do that and pull it off well, because admittedly, fourth wall humor has gotten kind of stale at this point. Like, so many things have been doing it that there's not a whole lot left.
Anyways,
but I do think that there is still an art to pulling it off successfully.
Like animation,
Definitely.
Or like Sonic Boom and Deadpool are always examples that come to my
a
mind.
lot of people, like Isaac Watso. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a pretty prominent YouTube person on Twitter. Basically said Cusco is the Deadpool of Disney animation.
Oh yeah, I saw that tweet.
Basically.
Basically. I think you'd have to have a crossover with someone to fully sink that in.
Well, they're both owned by Disney, and Disney owns Fox too. It would be very difficult to do a PG Deadpool movie.
Oh, I just noticed they even have the same color pattern.
But if anyone could pull off a PG Deadpool movie, it's the people who did The Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah, both Deadpool and Cusco wear black and red.
Huh.
Cusco has some gold in him as well, but that doesn't.
Deadpool tried to make a PG-13 film with Once Upon a Deadpool, and it just didn't feel right.
It was just the safer TV
I'm
version.
sure there's people who can pull it off, because I think there's people who can pull off just about any idea. It's all about.
But I think Disney said they are open to making an R-rated Deadpool movie.
I know, but I don't want an R-rated Deadpool meets The Emperor's New Groove.
Okay, yeah. Well, if Rick and Morty and Gravity Falls have a crossover, would you want it to be so kids could watch it?
They already have, in a way. It's just subtle.
Yeah. Yeah, where Dan throws stuff into a portal, and then Rick and Morty, those exact same.
Have you
No,
read the journal?
I want the full on package. I want the whole thing.
I want to know. Have you read the journal?
Yes.
There's a thing in the journal where there's a bunch of pictures, and a couple of them are alien silhouettes, and a couple of them are aliens for Rick and Morty, and one of them is the Plumbus. How did Disney
everyone owns a Plumbus.
How did Disney let that get through? Because everyone knows what the Plumbus looks like.
Yeah.
But you don't know where Plumbuses come from.
Well, when a mommy Plumbus and a daddy Plumbus love each other very much.
See, that interdimensional cable episode might not have been as good as the first one, but it did give us the Plumbus, so I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also a fan, because I've done it a lot, of improv, and there is, I guess this comes from being largely board driven, a sense of sort of improviness and spontaneousness to New Groove that I don't think they had in the TV show, because the TV show was largely just scripted, I believe.
The show was scripted, but yeah, I do get that sort of sense that most of Emperor's New Groove was improv.
So storyboarded, a storyboarded driven movie. Does that mean that most of the humor is on the fly?
I'm not an expert, so maybe someday I will be. I would like to be.
I do know what storyboards are, just so everyone knows. I'm not sure what people mean when they say something is storyboard driven.
It's where they take it, they show the thing, and the actors and the people in charge would try to match their script to the storyboard.
Yeah, usually they pitch scenes with storyboards, and then later the screenwriter will write down some of the stuff and also punch up the dialogue to make it more punchy and stuff. So Chris Williams was a storyboard artist, and I believe he's the guy. He's the guy who came up with the whole talking to squirrels thing, and just as a joke. But in The Emperor's New Groove, if you have something as a joke, just put it in the movie.
Right.
There was almost a scene where there was going to be live action footage of a space shuttle, but Disney said that was just too weird.
I don't know how that would work in context.
You know what? I think they would absolutely do something like that now.
School out of context. That's just funny parts from The Emperor's New School taken out of context on Twitter.
I think people are a lot more open now to throwing live action weirdness into their cartoons. Just look at The Amazing World of Gumball.
Yeah, in moderation it works, but if you build an entire... I haven't watched much of Gumball, but I hear it's pretty good, but in general, it's a tricky thing to pull off if you're not going to do it sparingly.
Yeah.
Of course, that's just my opinion, but
And of course, we all. Of course, there's the iconic boneless dancing in My Little Pony,
yeah.
hit it boneless, and it's just like a puppet on like a chicken
What?
toy on a
I
string.
looked it up.
Oh, don't forget the gummy shake.
Yeah, the gummy shake.
Just a baby gator.
Or how about the scene from Chowder where they have no money for the animation, so it's just the
I
voice
have
acting?
seen that on YouTube.
Yeah. I remember when I watched that as a kid, I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea how pretty Truffles'
you guys-
actress was.
If you guys watch, first of all, do you have Disney Plus? Because
Yeah.
it would happen for the next question.
Yeah.
And have you watched Candace Against the Universe?
Yes.
No.
I
The
did.
one that I have mixed feelings about that movie, to be honest. There's some jokes that really drag on, but the one joke that I love is am I allowed to spoil it?
Yeah, go for it.
Go ahead.
I'll spoil it for the people listening. It's the fourth wall joke where everything is stripped down to its basic elements as they're going through the wormhole, and at the end it's just Dan and Swampy at a storyboard.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
that was pretty funny. That reminded me of the Chowder joke. It was funny.
Yes, that's what. And you're mentioning the Chowder joke reminding me of that joke. So,
And Amazing World of Gumball did something very similar where, Yoda, you're echoing.
Sorry, let me do that.
remember in the 2000s when every movie had an echo joke? Like the mid 2000s.
Oh, yeah, I
Or
do.
maybe it was just Shark Tale and Finding Nemo. Swap it, Finding Nemo and Shark Tale. But those movies, one of those movies is a ripoff of the other, so I think of it as, oh my gosh, they even ripped off that joke.
I mean, Incredibles had a scene like that. Not sure if it was a joke, but it did have an echo scene.
Cool.
These are the things where the characters literally say echo, echo, echo.
Ah.
And
I do like Family Guy's version of it, where Stewie realizes that the inside of his voice like talks with an echo. He's like, pigs in space.
they do a thing where they always have something over the credits of an episode of The Emperor's New School, and there's an episode where Bonk is yodeling, and he's yodeling, and it echoes back, and then he says, "Now what?" And the voice echoes back, "Now let's show the logo."
That's funny.
Amazing World of Gumball also had a similar joke where they ran out of money, and so the entire world just started like breaking down until it like came down to the storyboards, and then they just became sticky notes until they got their money back.
Reminds me of a Family Guy joke. It's like, what's blocking traffic? There's the problem. They haven't finished drawing it yet.
Yeah.
And then they get like a stick and they poke the animator who's like asleep at his
There was an
desk.
episode of Family Guy. I don't think it was really him, but there was an episode of Family Guy where David Spade as a character was in it as a fictional version.
That's right.
Oh, right,
And-
replacing Peter.
And
From
I
the-
think Cleveland says, who is David Spade? And Patrick Warburton lists things he's from, and he doesn't list The Emperor's New Groove or Rules of Engagement, which both had Patrick Warburton and David Spade in them.
Oh, that's weird. Not do that. Why would they? That's such a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
I don't know if they
I mean,
even know
the
The
fact
Emperor's New
that-
Groove exists.
I mean, the fact they're leaving off the movies that they were both in, it feels intentional.
Rules of Engagement was a TV show, but
David's. Oh yeah, I forgot that David Spade like played Peter like when his
yeah, I don't know if
He played Uncle
it does not
Ricky.
sound like David Spade, so I'm pretty sure it's
Hey
a
guys, a
impersonation.
time period called They Want an Object Back.
Hey, I'm David Spade. See, I can't do a David Spade voice.
Oh, Peter. And Peter as James
Oh,
Woods was
Bambi.
going to get David Spade for the super offensive 9/11 movie.
Yes, that's what I remember. It's like, I play a window washer, and as the plane's coming towards me, I'm like,
maybe-
geez, I just
maybe
finished cleaning this
I'm
window.
getting flashbacks to a certain character in Family Guy's Twitter that I don't really want to talk about.
Okay.
Good idea.
Certain character in Family Guy.
Yeah, I mean,
So let's get back to Groove,
okay.
who was in both of the episodes we mentioned. What else do you want to talk about the Emperor's New Groove?
I don't know.
Oh my god,
I don't
we've
know
been
what
talking
there
about
is
the
left to
Emperor's
talk
Groove.
about.
I think we covered our bases.
We've been talking about it for so many months, man. I can't.
I feel like I've been talking about it for months just now.
I mean, you have an entire podcast dedicated to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
You're the world.
a lot to talk about.
God, oh man, I can't think of anything. I mean, what else is there to say?
It is. I mean, it's like I've heard people say it's one of their favorite and one of the greatest comedies. It's definitely one of the greatest animated comedies.
It's Disney's
And
best
definitely
pure
one of the
comedy.
greatest Disney comedies. Absolutely,
Yeah.
it's the finest Disney movie.
Right.
Yeah, Disney. I have said before in the last podcast, but Emperor's New Groove is my second favorite Disney film.
Yeah, it's easily in my top 5.
Yeah.
What is your first?
Oh,
Moving up
Aladdin.
Yeah, for me, I actually like this about as much as I like The Lion King, which is funny
Yeah.
because they were both the finalists.
Yeah.
And
You're not-
I feel like The Emperor's New Groove wouldn't have existed if it weren't for the anachronisms and stuff of Aladdin and Hercules. Also, Pocahontas and Hunchback and stuff, all fine movies, but they didn't do well at the box office, so they wanted to diversify their films.
Right.
I think movies
fact-
like Wreck-It Ralph and Zootopia, I do not think would exist without The Emperor's New Groove.
Right, and it was a formula break. It did something different.
Because I think that
Because in the 2000s, everything had to be a comedy.
by the 2010s,
Yeah, but-
I think they had decided they wanted to do. It's called the revival era, but I like to call it the experimentissance,
Oh, I like that
Right.
name.
where it's like a hybrid of what they were doing, not exactly what they were doing, experimenting every time is sort of a new thing, but practicing newer ideas with classic Disney movies, balancing the two. So you have Wreck-It Ralph and Zootopia and Big Hero 6, but you also have Frozen and Tangled, not in that order, obviously, and Moana,
Right.
and probably I don't know what I believe Raya is going to be like. Raya and the Last Dragon is going to be
I
like.
consider Raya the start of a new era since it's the first post-Lasseter movie that's not a sequel.
Yeah. And I don't like. At first, I thought it was going to be another Princess movie, which is fine. It looks very different from the teaser I saw. It looks more actiony. I mean, I guess Moana was pretty actiony too. Moana is a hero's journey princess movie.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I spaced out. What's more actiony?
Raya and the Last Dragon.
Oh, okay.
It's more actiony than like Frozen or Tangled. I guess Moana sort of was.
I still haven't seen. I haven't seen that trailer yet. I should probably watch that.
It's
It's
neat.
cool. There's people in it.
Yeah. How to Train Your Asian Dragon.
Pretty much.
They got the Rose lady from Last Jedi.
I'm glad she finds work. She is pretty good, even if she's
that- I feel like yes, she was definitely given a raw deal with that whole Star Wars experience. She definitely deserved better.
Definitely.
Honestly, I'm not a huge the hugest Star Wars fan in the world, anyways. But I like the sequel trilogies. But I definitely feel like Rose and John were not given a good. They were not treated right. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, for sure. And I'm glad that they've got other stuff going for them.
Yeah.
'Cause I believe he was in the recent Pacific Rim movie.
Yeah.
I don't know how well that film did though.
I don't think it did very well, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Or I don't think it was received very well. There's a difference between doing well and being well received, because The Emperor's New Groove was actually pretty well received when it came out. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it do better in like video sales?
it did. That's how it became popular. How it became popular enough to get the sequel on the TV show, I think.
Okay, I'm glad that there's a happy ending there at least.
Yeah.
Because like, oh my gosh, this film has $100 million budget and it does not feel like it. Like this does not feel like $100 million film. I'm just gonna say that right now.
No, animation's always a little more expensive
Also, it was a completely different film that had more.
But I mean, you've got
stuff.
Captain Underpants, and that film only cost $38 million.
Really?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, this, the whole story about Kingdom of the Sun. I don't know how much of that.
Oh yeah, you're right. That probably does go in.
That's
probably why the budget is higher.
Traditional Disney movie where they had lots of CGI. The one thing I kind of like about the Overrated Groove is there is CGI in it, but they deliberately make the CGI look as much like the hand drawn as possible. The log and the cart are CGI in the Emperor's movie.
I didn't even know that.
That's the point.
Yeah. So
the cart that Cusco lands on.
I guess. Oh, hello, Ryan.
No, not my name.
Sorry, I forgot.
Rebecca.
Sorry.
What? Hey,
Forgot.
Rebecca, how you doing?
Hey, Jack, are you almost done? That's why I wanted to call you, because my video just ended.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can come over right now if you're ready.
Yeah, we might start wrapping up soon, actually.
Yeah, we're getting around there.
Besides just, I'm going to plug the podcast, but also.
Hey, Jack, I just
Yeah?
want to say one thing to Jack. I'll be over there at 8 o'clock. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds good.
Excellent.
What that post?
All right, so you
Oh,
ready to just about wrap things
Yeah.
up?
I forgot that her name was Rebecca. My bad.
Oh no, don't worry, it's all cool.
As long as you correct yourself.
So
Yeah.
good.
I won't be making a big old Twitter thread about this later. Like, so my supposed friend just told me to, that whole thing.
Yeah. But anyway, I think we can start to wrap this up now.
Does
Yeah.
anybody else, besides obviously this podcast and their YouTube channel, have anything to plug besides me? I said anybody else.
I made a video today. It's all the deaths in Death Battle, but set to the beat of Mr. Blue Sky to celebrate their 10-year anniversary. So
Nice.
check that out if you're interested, please. I am very happy with how it turned out,
Is it-
and also, at Nabnet108 at Out of Context RBPA.
it's like one of those videos where every beat it cuts to a different death.
Yes,
I love
exactly.
I like those videos.
Actually, I'll go ahead and post it right now, so just so and
Yeah.
I if you.
I'll
Yeah.
link it in the description.
Starting the,
Thank you.
I'm also starting the Pixar Panic in January, so we're 2 weeks away from the release of Soul. So if you have Disney Plus, you watch that, and the winner of Pixar Panic will challenge the Emperor's New Groove in the grand final in a super.
I don't know where that would go because the internet loves Pixar and the Emperor's New Groove. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna be pleasantly surprised. Let's see which film wins because
Yeah.
I really want to do this Super Cup.
It's been a while since Pixar's had a really good film, so all I could say about Soul is, Pete Doctor, please save us.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought Onward was really good. I thought Onward was good. I thought Coco was really good.
Onward was all right.
Yeah.
I love
The Oscar, that was like 3 years ago, so
Yeah,
I do think the film would have been better if they had gotten Michael Cera and Jack Black to voice. I think it would have been better if they got Michael Cera and Jack Black to voice the characters, but I get Chris Pratt and Tom Holland are a bit more relevant.
They got the two Peters.
the film came out a decade ago, maybe, but
If I were to plug something in, I'm working on a special edition of my story, Animation Acres, and Wesley was actually editing something for me, and I like to say, keep an eye on that. It should be on DeviantArt soon.
yeah.
Cool.
Coolio.
I've stopped using DeviantArt, so maybe I'll check that out when.
Sorry, I haven't looked at the editing as much as I wanted to. Jackson's super busy.
That's cool.
By the way, I'm not the kind of person who, when they stop using DeviantArt, they'll deactivate their account. I'm not going to be that kind of guy because I have stuff on there that I want people to still be able to, look at.
Same.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So, anybody else have anything to plug?
I think that's
Well,
it.
yeah.
Like my
Alright,
YouTube channel.
I do mine now. Sorry.
No, yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
My YouTube channel. Well, there's a YouTube channel for the Emperor's New Podcast. That's the Emperor's New Podcast. But my main YouTube channel is Fireblast Studios on YouTube. I do animations, or cartoons, or whatever you want to call them. My most popular videos are animations of excerpts sort of taken out of context from Tony Goldmark's podcast, Escape from Walt Disney, which you should all listen to as well. That's a great podcast. What else? I have a Patreon. Fireblast Studios is my Patreon. And I have podcast TENP is this Twitter, the podcast Twitter. Micah Hirsh at Micah Hirsh on Twitter is my personal Twitter. I think that's about it.
Okay.
Cool. If you want to leave links to that in the chat, I'll be sure to put those in the description.
All right, just a moment.
All right.
I
Thank
think
you all
that-
so much.
Yeah,
Thank you
I
all
think
for
that just
joining
about
us.
covers everything.
Thank you
This was a lot of
for
fun.
Our silly little project.
Yeah.
Well, what can I say except you're welcome?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Take care, everybody.
Boom, baby!